Hey, folks, and welcome back to another episode of All Things Neurodivergence. And so today we're going to talk about workplace accommodations that actually help. So, supports that make work more accessible for ADHD, autism, and AuDHD brains without lowering expectations or professionalism. So, first of all, why do accommodations matter? Well, because neurodivergent brains process information differently, not wrongly, just differently. Um, and many performance issues are actually kind of environment mismatches, not personal flaws, either environmental or kind of cultural differences, not understanding what neurodivergent brains need, right? Sometimes we don't understand what we need, or sometimes we advocate for it and we're told no, that it's not that is not applicable, or that we can't have it, or if you don't have an official diagnosis, then you don't need it. So the thing is, accommodations don't make things you know easier for us than for neurotypical people. What it does is it levels the playing field by reducing things like sensory overload, executive functioning issues, unnecessary cognitive strain, overwhelm, all of these things. So it's not like it gives us a leg up. What it does is it actually helps us to get on the same level, or at least try to get on the same level as those that do not experience neurodivergence. So it would be, the same as somebody who is in a wheelchair needs obviously a wheelchair accessible building to get into. They would need a desk that is built to accommodate the wheelchair being able to go under it, because not a lot of desks actually are, things like that. And when you have a physical disability, there are still often a lot of issues around getting accommodations. However, the types of accommodations that are needed are often a lot easier to see. Whereas when it's a hidden disability like neurodivergence, it can be a lot harder to see or understand why somebody would need accommodations. And the thing is, when you have accommodations, they improve the productivity, the retention, and the well-being for your neurodivergent employees and the whole team. And the thing is, a lot of the accommodations you would put into place for neurodivergent folks are things that would actually help everyone, not only neurodivergent folks. So there's this idea of like, oh, well, I don't want to put this into place because it would be too hard. And it's like, well, no, it's often not. And the things that you would put into place would actually benefit everyone on your team or in your employee. So some things to think about. So what are some executive function friendly supports? And again, these are suggestions. These are not by any means comprehensive. And these are not things that would necessarily work for every single person. And that's okay. It's to give you an idea of places to start, and then you kind of jump off from there. Try some things. I've worked with clients where I've suggested something, they've tried it, hasn't worked for them. Fair enough. We try something else, right? So it's not about like, oh, you have to do these things and it will work. These are ideas. So one would be clear, concise written instructions instead of verbal only requests. Alternatively, it could be some people actually do much better with verbal requests than writing because of tone. Um, Another one could be like something like chunking tasks together into smaller steps with defined priorities. So instead of being kind of nebulous and be like, oh, I need this project done by X day, it's okay. So I need this part of the project done by this day. I need this part of the project done by this day. Right? To just kind of give you an idea. Kind of being more, instead of like, here's the whole thing, it's there's this, then this, then this, then this, right? Another one would be extended deadlines when tasks involve heavy planning or sustained focus, or alternatively, actually shortening the deadline. Because if you say, hey, there's 2 weeks or you have 3 weeks to, do this thing, and somebody's like, it would take me a week at most to knock this out. Oftentimes with ADHD, we will stretch it until the last minute. So sometimes it's actually better for us to have a shorter deadline. Sometimes we need an extended deadline, right? Sometimes if you have 2 or 3 things that are due around the same time, it helps to be like, actually, we're going to move some of these up sooner to create that accountability, that external pressure. Another one would be something like task management tools that are supported by the employer. So some common ones are like Trello, Asana, Notion. ChatGPT can be helpful. My team, we use Microsoft Suites and kind of all the stuff that's involved with that. So Teams and Outlook and SharePoint and things like that. Setting it up on my end has been a pain in the ass, but it is helpful kind of having everything in one place, right? Another one is regular check-ins to clarify expectations, but without micromanaging. There's a difference between saying, hey, can you check in on me and just kind of see where things are going and how things are going, versus you taking it upon yourself to do that and the person is feeling that they're not trusted, that they're being micromanaged. So regular check-ins, when requested by your employee, or saying, hey, just wanted to check in, see how things are going. Are you feeling like this is a good amount? Should we increase it, decrease it, right? Trusting that people understand themselves and their needs. I'm not saying hands off and never check in. No, obviously not. But we can do regular check-ins without being micromanaging, right? Flexible scheduling to align with energy patterns, because a lot of neurodivergent folks, our energy patterns fluctuate a lot, right? So if you're able to kind of accommodate flexible scheduling, what that could look like, and again, that's something between you and your employee and your workplace. Some places you can't really do flexible scheduling. A lot of places you can, especially nowadays, right? So just trying to be mindful of that. Like for me, I have my clients, and so I have to see my clients. That is non-negotiables. But it's, some days I wake up late and it's like I wasn't able to get my workout in. But if I don't have any clients, I might prioritize doing the workout because I know that it's actually going to help me to be more productive and effective later on the day. Whereas if I don't do the workout, I find it's a lot harder for me to focus, to concentrate, to get stuff done, right? I have that ability. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I have a day full of clients or meetings and I can't change them or switch them or reschedule them. I just have to do it. So sometimes I miss it on my workout. But where possible, I try and do it, right? So just things like that to kind of keep in mind. Something else to think about is sensory-friendly accommodations. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, so for me, I'm very misanthropic. So that means I'm very, very sound sensitive. So I really like noise canceling headphones or AirPods. So I, again, own the business, so I can do what I want. But when if I was working in an office, be able to wear them and, be able to block things out can be really helpful. So like permission to use them, lighting adjustments. Right now I have the overhead light on, but sometimes I would turn that off. In my office, I have I'm sitting right by a big window. And then on the other side of the room, I also have a light, a lamp that the light bulbs dim. So I can really kind of, I can adjust that. Sometimes I do need the overhead light on, but not a lot. Trying to create quiet workspaces, so like pods or noise canceling, kind of like paneling if you have your own office, or even permission to work remotely because you can kind of control your environment better. Trying to reduce sensory stimulation during meetings. So I've been in meetings where there's just so many people talking at once and I get overloaded. And I literally was like, I can't focus. I can't think of what I've said. And I've had to be like, well, hold up. I'm sorry. I can't I'm trying to say something and there's multiple conversations happening, I can't focus on what's happening, right? So it helps to be able to kind of have that understanding and be able to speak up and be like, hey, I need, this is what I need, right? Um, Alternative seating. So, standing desks, fidgets, got one in my hands right now, right? Stability chairs, the seats you can kind of sit and bounce on, stuff like that, right? So, uh, being able to get up and move around. I just did a presentation last night. It was a 2-hour presentation uh, workshop. And halfway through, I was like, hey, we're going to put in a 5-minute break so people can get up and move around, right? So stuff like that just helps us to be able to stay focused a little bit more. Um, Communication supports. So agenda first meetings to reduce ambiguity. So to help everybody understand what's happening. So I'll admit, as an ADHD, I'm bad at sometimes doing that, but I will send out, when I think of it ahead of time, I sometimes will send out an agenda and be like, hey, this is what we're going to talk about. Is there anything that anybody wants to talk about that we can add to the agenda? Follow-up summaries after important discussions to kind of make sure everybody's on the same page. I really like to record our meetings so that afterwards I can kind of get a transcript of it and have a summarization of the meeting that helps to know, like, well, who has to do what. Time to process. So rather than expecting kind of an immediate response or decision, allowing people time to think about what it is that they want to think about or consider, not kind of putting them on the spot and be like, I need an answer right now. Right. So just that ability to take that time to think through what you want, which again, this is something that is great for everyone. Clarity around priorities. So that helps reduce confusion when juggling tasks. So especially as ADHDers, we like to kind of hop around to different things. So sometimes knowing what the priorities are can be helpful. So that's something that they could do themselves or potentially do with a manager if they're struggling with figuring out priorities, which honestly sometimes ADHDers often do. Direct but compassionate feedback. So no bad hints or sarcasm. Um, I think, obviously some sarcasm is okay if that's kind of the workplace and that's the vibe. But understanding that, if the person doesn't get sarcasm, um, being aware of that. And then how can you kind of accommodate that? Maybe not do sarcasm, right? But just being direct but compassionate. Um, I'll get into that a little bit. But as an example of that, like um, when talking about like, hey, when I used to work for other people, be like, hey, Rob, can I talk to you for a second? And my immediate thought was, I'm fired. Like my RSD was so high because a lot of times, that was what would happen. So um, when I would talk to managers about that, kind of after I got diagnosed, I was like, if you need to talk to me, if it's not something serious, you telling me like, hey, listen, I just need to talk to you. It's nothing serious. Just wanted to kind of check in on something. It's all good. Helps to kind of address the RSD that a lot of us have, right? So some of the things are like flexible work options. So as I discussed previously, like remote or hybrid flexibility to control the environment. Today, my daughter unexpectedly had the day off of school. It's a PD day. I did not know that. And so I'm working from home today. There are times when it's like going out is not great, right? Or if I'm feeling really overwhelmed, or sometimes it's like, I don't want to be in the house. I actually want to get out to the office because I find it's easier to focus in the office than here because I don't feel like, oh, I have to, do dishes or laundry or stuff like that, right? So adjusted hours for sleep challenges, executive functioning, energy dips, things like that, as I talked about before. This is a big one, camera off options for virtual meetings to reduce kind of the sensory overwhelm. I will admit, when I'm giving a presentation or talking to somebody in a meeting, I prefer for their camera to be on. However, when I'm the one that's not kind of leading the meeting, it's not super comfortable for me to just sit there and have the camera on, right? So allowing people that discretion to have the camera off if needed I mean, you can say like, hey, I really like to be able to have the camera on, to be able to see you. If you're going to speak, it'd be great if you could turn the camera on. Um, these can definitely be requests. And again, it's okay to have like, say like, this is what you have to do, but understand that just because this is a requirement doesn't mean it's easy for people. So if you don't actually have to have it, then, giving that as an option. Kind of asynchronous communication when possible instead of kind of like real-time chats, or sometimes people prefer real-time chat. They don't want to, do an email. They want to have a phone call or like in person or a video chat, right? So really trying to figure out what works best with, that person, right? So here's some ADHD specific supports. One of them would be body doubling or co-working sessions. So it doesn't even necessarily have to be like, oh, you both work on the same thing at the same time. It could be, you work on one thing, I work on another. Like, for example, my daughter would be working on her homework and I'd be doing something for my work and we'd just be sitting there together, right? Deadlines with gentle nudges. So again, reminders that aren't punitive. Permission to move. So fidgeting, walking breaks, pacing, right? Things like that. Dopamine friendly workflows. So audio instructions, interactive brainstorming, novelty, right? Be able to interact with people can be really helpful. I'm sure there are more. So if you can think of any, please let me know. Drop them in the comments. I would love to hear from you. Some autistic specific ones are predictable routines and advance notice for changes can be really, really helpful. That one actually is actually really helpful for ADHD as well. We struggle with those, but it is helpful. Clear expectations around roles, responsibilities, kind of like what constitutes success. Reduce social pressure. So optional social events. Hey, it'd be great if you could come to this, but you don't have to, right? And don't have it be, if somebody doesn't come, that it impacts their ability to kind of move up in the company, right? Dedicated quiet spaces for regulation. So allowing them, if they're feeling overwhelmed, to go. Like in our office, we have a sensory room. So sometimes it's got a nice big chair in there. And so sometimes I will just kind of go in there and put on the dimmable lamp and just sit in the chair and just kind of relax. Having something like that can be helpful. And detailed instructions versus kind of figure it out can be really helpful. So kind of mentioned this briefly kind of at the beginning, but like accessibility versus special treatment, right? Accommodations is not about doing less. It's about removing barriers. It's about making things be less difficult. It's removing barriers for us that aren't there for others, right? And again, many of the supports benefit everyone, not just neurodivergents. We need it, but neurotypicals still benefit from it, right? Productivity increases when neurodivergent workers are supported, encouraged, validated, understood, not overwhelmed, not overlooked, not dismissed, not invalidated. So what is the emotional and relational impact? Well, it helps to reduce burnout, shame, and imposter syndrome. The ability of like, do I belong here? Can I really do this work? They're just eventually going to find out that I'm a fraud, right? Struggling, feeling like, oh, any day now the floor is going to just kind of let out from underneath me, right? Employees feel valued instead of problematic. I cannot tell you how many times I've lost jobs, not because I wasn't able to do the job. I'm great at what I do, but because I was neurodivergent, and didn't realize it, and that impacted how I interacted with my work environment. Trust and communication improve for the entire team. Like, that is so important. And it often reduces turnover and conflict caused by misunderstanding of neurodivergent traits. So if you are neurotypical or you work in an environment that has kind of a very neurotypical cultural and framework, and you have neurodivergent employees, it'd be really helpful when you understand what neurodivergence is and what it means and how people, you know, react to it, right? So accommodations are a human need. They're not a weakness. And it's a sign of a healthy workplace culture. Understanding that not everybody's the same, and that's okay. Accommodations aren't about, giving preferential special treatment. It's about reducing barriers, making it so that everybody can be there. Because when everybody's included, that's better for the company, that's better for the clients, that's better for everyone. Inclusion supports and benefits everyone. It's an investment in long-term sustainability. It's not a temporary fix. This is something that has to be baked into the culture of the workplace. This isn't something that's like, oh, we're just going to slapdash it on, because that doesn't work. It has to be something that's integrated kind of from the ground up. So if you are an employer or you work with employers and you want to know more about how to create accommodations or what that would look like, or understanding neurodivergence in general, or especially in the workplace, I would love for you to reach out. I'd love to come and give a workshop or a presentation and help you to navigate this, because neurodivergence isn't going anywhere. Where more and more people are beginning to discover their neurodivergence and are needing supports, and um, it just benefits all of us when we understand and can accommodate neurodivergence. So we'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments, and I will reach out. And as always, thank you for coming, and look forward to seeing you next week. And please like, share, subscribe, follow all of the socials, and I'll talk to you again. Miigwech.